Hi everybody, I'm Laurie. I'm VP of Developer Relations at LlamaIndex, and I'm here to talk to you today about LlamaParse. We're going to be doing a quick and dirty walkthrough of some of LlamaParse's enormously great array of features. So let's first talk about how you get into LlamaParse, which is you just go to cloud.llamaindex.ai and you log in. There's a parse section, and there's a convenient little UI here for you to try out basic parsing. You can see that there's a huge list of options. There's language, there's parsing instructions, there's page separators, prefixes, suffixes. You can choose specific pages of your document to parse. You can set a bounding box. You can skip diagonal text. You can invalidate your cache, or you can avoid caching entirely. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do, and we're going to be talking about those later on in this video. In the meantime, let's just try dragging and dropping a file. In this case, a PDF guide to San Francisco, and we'll hit parse. It takes a little while to parse, but then you get, in this version, a Markdown set of text giving you Markdown tables, headings, all that kind of stuff, showing the contents of the PDF. If you don't want Markdown, just turn off the Markdown mode and you will instead get text, which includes the original columns and all of the rest. So let's talk about how to use LlamaParse in other ways. Programmatically is how you'll be using LlamaParse most of the time. This exploration via the UI is mainly for getting started. Using it in Python is pretty easy. You set a Llama Cloud API key. You install LlamaParse along with LlamaIndex Core. And then you bring in LlamaParse, and in this case, Simple Directory Reader, and you create the parser. In this case, we've set the result type to Markdown. You tell Simple Directory Reader to use an extractor for PDFs. You give it the input files, and then you tell it load data. Then you print your documents, and you'll get your parsed file. You can also use TypeScript. TypeScript is much the same. You set the same API key. You install TypeScript, you install LlamaIndex. In this case, LlamaParse is built into LlamaIndex TS. And you import LlamaParse reader. Then you create a function that creates the reader. You call reader with reader.load data with your path, and you get your parsed document. You can also use it via the API. If you don't want to use Python or JavaScript, you can call it directly from the API. This is showing some curl calls. This is how you'd upload a file to start parsing in the first place. So you pass in api.cloud.llamaindex.ai and the API endpoint for parsing. You pass in your API key as your authorization bearer, and you pass in a path to your file. You can use this endpoint to check the status of your parsing job, because parsing can sometimes take a while if it's a very large job. And then you can get the results just like you did in the UI and in JavaScript and Python like we just said. We have full API documentation of, I should fix that link. We have full API documentation down here showing all of our endpoints. So every single one of them is documented with full examples in curl, Python, all of that kind of stuff. Your full API for all of Llama Cloud is documented here. So now let's look at some examples. In this repo at LlamaParse examples, we have a huge set of examples of how to use LlamaParse. Let's just go through a couple of them. Before we do that, I wanted to mention how many different types of files we support. I've only been using PDFs because that's our basic type, but we support all sorts of document types like Word docs, PowerPoints, all sorts of obscure formats that you've never heard of. It can parse images, and it can parse spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets, and a huge array of other types of spreadsheets. So really, LlamaParse can do a whole bunch of parsing of all sorts of document types, not just PDFs. Here's an example of it parsing an Excel file. It's exactly the same as parsing any other file. We've created our parser with an API key. We've told it to give us Markdown, and we've said load data, this time on an Excel file, and you can see it's given us a beautiful text table of the data in the spreadsheet. The rest of this is about how to build RAG over those documents, which we're not going to be talking about today. Now let's talk about JSON mode. One of the things that you can do with the API is get JSON back, a JSON document structure representing your parsed document, not just Markdown or text. In this case, we are setting up JSON mode using LlamaParse, and we're using the getJSONResult method to get the raw JSON. What we're doing here is we're going to use the fact that the JSON mode contains more metadata than text or Markdown would give you. One of the things that the JSON mode gives you is it gives you image objects in the JSON. So we have a function here which looks at our JSON extracted and finds all of the images that are referred to in the JSON mode and turns them into image documents, which is LlamaIndex's way of dealing with multimodal images. You can then create a vector store index that contains both your text nodes and your image text nodes. And you can do query engines that look up across your images. In this case, what we did was we attached metadata to each image using an LLM to describe what the image was. So then we got text nodes that said what the images were, and we used that in the index to look stuff up. The next cool thing that you can do with JSON mode is you can use the LlamaParse JSON node parser, which is a built-in from LlamaParse in the Python version. What this does is it parses complex documents with things like tables and images and stuff like that from the JSON mode into a richer format. Specifically, what it does is you get JSON result like you did before. You can see this is what the JSON result looks like. And then you pass that output to the LlamaParse JSON node parser. So we get the nodes from the documents and we pass it to the node parser. What this does is it gives us, it allows us to give our set of nodes and recursive nodes. So we don't just have the text of the document here, we have table objects that we can then give to our recursive retriever. So a recursive retriever in LlamaIndex allows you to do queries across your entire document that if it returns like a table object, instead of just saying, here's the text of the table. It knows that it is a table, and it can look into the table and give you specific answers from that table, which is what it is doing here. It's asking, what is Uber's short-term insurance reserves reported in 2022? That answer is living in a table. And our retrieval is able to pull it straight out of the table because of the rich metadata that it has about the tables that it got from JSON mode. Another thing that you can do when you have complex tabular data is you can use a recursive retriever using the Markdown element node parser, which is what we're doing here. So in this case, what you do is you use LlamaParse with result type equal to Markdown to read some documents, and then you feed those documents to the Markdown element node parser. So you can see us instantiating the node parser here. And then we pass each of these things to the node parser. This allows us to create a query engine for each of these documents that is able to provide rich information about the contents of the document because we have so much more information from LlamaParse than we would have if we just parsed raw text. Another feature that you might have seen when we were looking in the GUI at the options is multi-language support. OCR and parsing over non-English languages is often quite fraught because of different character sets and things like that. And that is what this feature is intended to take care of. So in this case, you can say LlamaParse with the result type text and the language is French. Parsing a French document, you get accents and things like that you would not otherwise get because LlamaParse knows what language it's working in. And the final feature that I want to talk about today is parsing instructions. Parsing instructions are an incredibly rich feature. Basically, parsing instructions allow you to tell LlamaParse what kind of document it's looking at before it parses it. So in this case, we've downloaded a manga, a comic book, and we're parsing it with, in this example, we're parsing it without parsing instructions, and you get really weird results because manga's it's got these big boxes that have text in balloons for it, and it reads right to left instead of left to right. So instead, you create some parsing instructions. The provided document is a manga comic book. Most pages do not have a title. It does not contain tables. Try to reconstruct the dialogue. And you pass those parsing instructions as a parameter to LlamaParse when you're instantiating it. And suddenly, it knows what it's looking at. It tells you, it gives you the dialogue in the right order. And it can also do other stuff like it can parse math. This manga happens to be about math, so we don't have to go and find another PDF about math. But as you can see here, it has a bunch of complex equations with mathematical notation. And you can give it the instruction that you should output any math equations in latex Markdown. Because our parser knows what latex is. And here you get your equations turned into into latex instructions here. This is without instructions. It does its best, but it's obviously converting math into text as best that it can. But this is full latex that renders out perfectly. This is a rendered version of our latex instructions parsed out of the manga. As you can see, it looks almost exactly the same as the original manga. It's just not in Comic Sans anymore. So that's our top level list of examples of LlamaParse. This has been quick and dirty, but I hope you can see that LlamaParse has a huge body of features and a whole bunch of stuff that you can do. And thanks for your time and attention.